September 18, 1931, 10:10 p.m. Near Liuqiao Lake, just outside Mukden in Manchuria. The night air is crisp and clear. A dry, late summer breeze whispers through the sparse grasses and scattered pine trees. The South Manchuria Railway, a vital steel vein, cuts through the darkened farmland. Along the train tracks, a small, clandestine detachment from the Japanese Guangdong Army advances without the aid of lanterns. Their boots press softly into the gravel ballast. An officer, as if taking a pulse, kneels to feel the rail with a gloved hand. They aren't here for a battle. Their purpose is to enact a prelude, a justification for war. A satchel charge is carefully unpacked. The explosive is intentionally modest, designed to distort the rail, not sever completely. The charge is secured to the track, and a fuse is lit. The men retreat into a nearby ditch. The resulting explosion is more of a pop than a roar, twisting a few meters of the rail. Distant dogs bark, disturbed from their sleep. The damage is minimal. A southbound train from Changchun is able to pass the site shortly after, without derailing. This detail is key. The attack is a staged event, not a genuine military action. Within minutes, telephones in Mukden begin to ring. Guangdong officers report that Chinese troops have sabotaged the railway. Orders, pre-written and anticipated, are issued. Japanese infantry stationed in the garrison rush towards the Chinese barracks. 2 artillery pieces are swiftly deployed and begin shelling at dawn. Small, rapid bursts meant to shock and intimidate. This marks the first layered crescendo. Approach and preparation, a fabricated injury, a scripted narrative, troops prepositioned for action. Chinese commanders find themselves in a bind. Their northeastern army, numbering around 160,000 troops in Manchuria at the time, according to some sources, is under strict political orders from Zhang Shuoyang to avoid escalation. Some units choose to retreat rather than engage in a full-scale war that Tokyo could easily portray as Chinese aggression. In these initial days, the Japanese advance resembles a knife effortlessly sliding into ripe fruit. The second layer is characterized by a chaotic collision, still localized but expanding with each passing hour. Japanese column seize Mukden, then key railway junctions, then entire cities, moving with modern, coordinated tempo. They utilize radios for communication and aerial scouts for reconnaissance. In contrast, Chinese formations, often lacking coordination and hampered by political restraints, retreat. Casualty figures from the conquest of Manchuria are inconsistent and vary depending on the source. Scholarly estimates generally place Japanese deaths in the low thousands, while Chinese military and civilian deaths are in the tens of thousands throughout the 1931-32 campaign. However, for Tokyo, the numbers are secondary to the speed of the operation. Within weeks, the northeast is effectively occupied. Then comes a third and most subtle layer, a strategic breakthrough within Japan itself. The Guangdong Army's operation is, in essence, unauthorized. Civilian leaders in Tokyo are initially outraged, but punishing the officers involved carries the risk of mutiny and public humiliation. So, they choose not to punish them. Instead, they ratify the new reality on the ground. A new unspoken rule is established within the officer corps. Act first and the state will follow. This principle spreads like wildfire, reshaping how young officers perceive power. Government is no longer something to be requested, but something to be seized by presenting the emperor and the cabinet with a fait accompli. This is referred to as government by incident. No one explicitly states it as a doctrine, but its influence is palpable. Inside Japan, the backdrop is one of economic hardship. The Great Depression severely impacts export silk, shipbuilding, and rice prices. Farmers are forced to sell their daughters into servitude, and factory workers queue for meager soup rations. Newspapers speak of a national emergency, while simultaneously promoting Manchuria as a solution. Land for settlement, coal for factories, iron for armament, soybeans for food security. For an island nation with limited natural resources, every map of Manchuria represents a lifeline. Civilian parties in the Diet engage in debates, stalling tactics, and political maneuvering. Their discourse seems slow and ineffective compared to the army's decisive action. Young officers champion the idea that party politics are inherently selfish, Western powers are hypocritical, and Japan's destiny lies on the continent. In military academies, cadets memorize lessons on kokutai, the sacred national essence, and on the emperor as the living embodiment of the state. Loyalty is not just a virtue. It is a fundamental law. Disobedience is a corrosive force. The prevailing culture within the barracks shifts from professionalism to a pursuit of purity. Spirit becomes more valued than logistics. Internal factions within the army vie for influence, but they share a fundamental belief that the military possesses a moral imperative to dictate policy. Diplomats express concerns about the League of Nations, but officers dismiss them. In 1933, Japan withdraws from the League in response to criticism of its actions in Manchuria, sending a clear message. International rules are optional if they impede national destiny. Within this vast machinery, glimpses of humanity emerge. In a Manchurian rail town, a Chinese station clerk watches as Japanese gendarmes replace a bilingual sign with one that prioritizes a new order. He carefully folds a small photograph of his parents into his shirt, averting his gaze. In a village near Harbin, a woman pulls her son close beside a rice storehouse, whispering that the soldiers are not speaking their language. He clutches her sleeve tighter. No dramatic event occurs in that moment, but ownership shifts in these quiet, incremental ways. In 1932, the occupation is formalized as Manchuria, a puppet state. WWII, the last Qing emperor, is installed as a nominal ruler, first as regent and later as emperor, while Japanese officials maintain actual control. A new flag is raised and a new police structure is established. The conquest is made to appear legitimate, an illusion that satisfies Tokyo's need to frame expansion as order. Back in Japan, political violence escalates. Radical military and ultra-nationalist groups begin assassinations to cleanse the nation. In 1932, young naval officers assassinate Prime Minister Inukai Tsuyoshi in the May 15th incident, claiming to act on behalf of the emperor. Public sympathy leads to lenient sentences. The result is not only the death of a leader, but a signal. Uniforms can silence politics and still be applauded. Coups and plots become more frequent. The February 26th incident in 1936 is suppressed more harshly, but even that purge solidifies the military's dominance and intensifies the fear among civilian parties. Each incident serves a dual purpose. It eliminates a dissenting voice and teaches surviving politicians to lower their gaze. By the mid-1930s, the initial phase of Japan's trajectory towards war in Asia is largely complete. Manchuria is secured. A puppet state is established. The military has learned that boldness triumphs over procedure, and the public has been conditioned to perceive continental expansion as a matter of survival, not choice. On maps in Tokyo, the empire has carved out a corridor that feels like destiny. The army is already within it, charging forward, and the civilians lack the power to restrain them. July 7th, 1937, 10:40 p.m. Marco Polo Bridge, also known as Legukio, located 10 miles southwest of Beiping. The night is warm and humid. The Yongding River flows below like a dark ribbon. Reeds rustle in the gentle breeze. Japanese garrison troops are conducting night maneuvers near the bridge, firing blanks, marching, halting, and shouting commands. After roll call, one soldier is missing. Officers believe he has wandered into the nearby walled town of Wanping. A Japanese captain, lantern in hand, approaches the Chinese gate and demands entry to search. The Chinese commander refuses. His men are on edge, rifles lowered but fingers poised on triggers. No one desires war in this oppressive heat at this late hour. Then, a single shot rings out. It's unclear who fired first. Both sides will later claim innocence. The night explodes into chaos. Japanese machine guns chatter from the riverbank, met by Chinese rifle fire from a wall. The initial clash is contained. A few men fall. Officers on both sides attempt to de-escalate the situation. Messages are exchanged frantically. A ceasefire is agreed upon before dawn, but exists only on paper, and paper ignites easily. At first light, the approach layer resumes. Renforcement arrive. The Japanese already control Fontai, a nearby railway junction, facilitating easy rail movement. Tokyo dispatches fresh units from Korea and Japan, and by late July, 3 divisions land under the guise of protecting order. Driven by public outrage and the fragile united front between nationalists and communists, Chinese commanders also send troops. Rail lines become congested with soldiers and ammunition. Weapons are strategically positioned. Japanese infantry carry the Type 38 Arisaka, a 6.5 by 50 mm bolt-action rifle with a practical rate of 10 to 15 aimed rounds per minute and an effective range of approximately 400 meters under field conditions. Heavy squads set up the Type 92-7, 7 mm heavy machine gun, boasting a cyclic rate of around 450 rounds per minute, but fired in controlled bursts with practical range of around 800 meters. Behind them sit Type 94-75 mm mountain guns, light enough to be hauled by teams, with a maximum range of nearly 8 kilometers and a rapid short burst capability of up to 15 rounds per minute. The Chinese field a diverse array of Mauser pattern rifles, machine guns, and artillery, less standardized and often supported by weaker logistics. The second layer, full chaotic collision, ignites at Beiping, Tianjin. Fighting spreads along the rail corridor like oil on water. Japanese units attack with combined arms. Planes bomb bridges, roads, and depots. Infantry advances behind artillery that unleashes dense, walking barges. A few shells per minute per gun, systematically shifting forward according to a predetermined timetable. The Chinese attempt to defend cities with barricades, sandbags, and trench lines dug into clay and dust. Some trenches in North China reach depths of 1.5 to 2 meters, according to some sources, but many positions are hastily constructed, too shallow to offer adequate protection from shell fragments. Civilians flee through alleys, carrying bedding, babies, and pots, with nowhere else to seek refuge. In Tokyo, the cabinet wavers between negotiation and escalation. The army decides for them. Orders are issued to expand operation. What began as a dispute over a bridge transforms into the Second Sino-Japanese War in practice, even before it is formally declared. August 13, 1937. Shanghai. The summer heat hangs heavy, like a damp cloth. The Huangpu River teems with barges, gray water lapping against their hulls. The approach phase here is visible from rooftops. Chinese troops pour into the city to defend it, hoping to draw international attention and slow the Japanese advance at a port significant enough to shame the world. Japanese naval landing forces and army divisions disembark with tanks and air cover. The collision becomes urban, fought block by block, building by building. Japanese SNLF Marines advance through streets swept by sniper fire. Chinese divisions, including elite German-trained units, launch counterattacks across boulevards under airstrikes. Stukas and Japanese dive bombers release patterns of bombs, shockwaves shattering windows a street away. Artillery shakes the bund. Civilian shelters are relegated to cellars, rail tunnels, and temple courtyards. Mothers press cloths over their children's ears when the sirens wail, their pitch teaching them when to hold their breath. Casualty accounting here is brutal and contested. Chinese official figures report approximately 187,000 killed and wounded in Shanghai, while other Chinese estimates reach 300,000. Japanese records list around 47,000 plus casualties, with other estimates hovering around 40,000. What is undeniable on the ground is the sheer density of death. Bodies in stairwells, stretchers on tram tracks, smoke that lingers even when the wind blows. A human moment pierces through the carnage. A Chinese medic kneels behind a shattered brick wall. She finds a young soldier lying on his back, eyes wide, his chest pierced. With a trembling hand, he points to his breast pocket. She retrieves a letter already soaked red. The last line is still legible. "Mother, don't sell my coat. I will come back for winter." She carefully folds a scrap and places it in her satchel. She blows a whistle, one sharp note to signal stretcher teams, then forces herself forward, drawn by another scream rising from the next doorway. By late November, Shanghai falls. Japanese forces advance up the Yangtze River. The third layer of this segment commences, a breakthrough that appears decisive but sows the seeds of overextension. December 4th to 13th, 1937. The Battle of Nanjing. The city's outer defenses collapse under relentless bombardment and infantry pressure. Exhausted and short on ammunition, Chinese units break. Some attempt to escape across the river. Japanese troops enter a capital already engulfed in flames. What follows is the Nanjing Massacre. The precise toll is bitterly debated. Major estimates range from approximately 100,000 to over 300,000 victims of killings, rape, and abuse, according to some sources. Regardless of the exact figure, the event remains a permanent scar in Chinese memory and a moral abyss in the war. Strategically, Japan now controls the coast, key railways, and major cities. Maps in Tokyo are marked with red pins marching inland. But China does not surrender. The nationalist government retreats to Chongqing. Resistance spreads into the countryside. The front extends for thousands of kilometers. Every new kilometer demands garrisons, supply convoys, fuel, and men. The breakthrough is real, but it is also a trap. Japan is seizing ground faster than it can consolidate it. The collision phase has served its purpose. It has transformed militarist momentum into an endless continental war. The pressure will drive Japan south in search of oil and steel. The war in Asia is now a river in flood, and its banks are already beginning to crumble. July 26, 1941, 5:55 a.m., Tokyo Bay. The air is thick and warm, the summer humidity causing uniforms to cling uncomfortably. Low clouds blur the horizon into a gray band. On the deck of an anchor destroyer, a naval staff officer stands beneath a canvas awning, rereading a cable. The words are brief and stark. The United States freezes Japanese assets. Oil exports are cut. Britain and the Netherlands follow suit. The ABCD line that Japanese propaganda has warned about is now a tangible policy. A second officer joins him, tapping the rail lightly with a pencil. He doesn't need to verbalize what both men understand. Japan imports the vast majority of its oil. Naval planners estimate reserve stocks at roughly 18 months in peacetime, less when fleets and armies are fully engaged, according to some sources. Without oil, the empire is a blade without a hilt. Carriers are mobilized, tanks can't maneuver, and aircraft are grounded. The deck feels as if it is tilted. The approach layer in this final segment is Japan's strategic pre-war drift, escalating into a countdown. In the preceding months, Japan has already advanced into southern French Indochina, further constricting China's supply lines. Each action is internally justified as defensive necessity, but each step also tightens the embargo. Now, the question is not whether to expand, but where and how quickly before the fuel reserves are depleted. Inside cabinet rooms in Tokyo, maps cover tables. Lines are drawn to Singapore, Manila, Borneo, Batavia. Oil fields are heavily circled in red pencil. The army argues. Strike south, seize resources, then negotiate from a position of strength. The Navy counters. If you move south, you must first neutralize the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Otherwise, American carriers will sever your sea lanes and starve your newly acquired empire. Diplomats continue to engage in talks. In Washington, Ambassador Nomura and Special Envoy Kurusu meet with U.S. officials throughout November. They request the resumption of oil exports and recognition of Japan's position in China. The U.S. demands withdrawal from China and Indochina. The gap between their positions is insurmountable. By late November, Japanese leadership interprets American notes as an ultimatum. Even those who doubt the wisdom of war see no path to retreat without facing political ruin. Human moments flicker amidst these strategic calculations. In Kure Naval Base, a 19-year-old petty officer writes to his older sister on thin paper. He describes repainting a carrier's hull at night, the scent of tar and salt. He adds a quiet line, "If I don't come back, keep father's photograph safe." He folds the letter tightly and tucks it behind his paybook. No one around him speaks of death, but everyone is mentally tracking their remaining fuel. Simultaneously, ships begin to silently slip out of ports under the cover of darkness. The carrier strike force assembles under radio silence. 6 carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Shokaku, Zuikaku, converge in northern waters. Each carrier carries roughly 60 to 70 aircraft, giving the force a total of around 350 planes. They practice takeoffs in freezing fog, because the route to Hawaii will take them through winter seas. Mechanics tighten bolts with numb fingers. Pilots rehearse attack headings with stopwatches. The Navy is meticulously preparing a single, devastating surprise attack, recognizing that surprise is their only force multiplier. The collision layer erupts on December 7th. December 7th, 1941, 7:48 a.m. Pearl Harbor, Oahu. The morning is bright, tropical, and tranquil. Light waves sparkle on the bay. American sailors are eating breakfast. Some are still in their undershirts. Then, the air is filled with a rising thunder that doesn't belong to the weather. Japanese aircraft dive out of the sun in waves. The first torpedoes strike low, the water collapsing inward before erupting violently. Battleships shudder. Bombs follow, drop from high-altitude level bombers. The attack unfolds in two main waves over approximately 2 hours. By the end, 8 U.S. battleships are damaged or sunk. Over 2,400 Americans are dead, and nearly 1,200 are wounded. Japanese losses are comparatively light. 29 aircraft and 5 midget submarines, 64 men. Tactically, it is a resounding success. Strategically, it is a bell that cannot be unrung. The third layer is a subsequent rapid imperial expansion, and the inherent seeds of collapse within that expansion. Almost simultaneously, Japanese armies launch attacks across Asia. Hong Kong falls in 17 days. Malaya is invaded, with bicycles and light tanks moving swiftly along narrow roads. Singapore, known as the Gibraltar of the East, surrenders on February 15, 1942, with approximately 80,000 Allied troops captured, the largest British surrender in history. The Philippines, the Dutch East Indies, Burma, each succumbs under the same pattern. Air supremacy, speed, a shock that shatters coordination. At sea, Japanese carrier aircraft sink the British battleships Prince of Wales and repulse off Malaya on December 10, 1941, demonstrating the ascendance of air power over surface fleets. Japan's map reaches its widest red outline by mid-1942. Oil from Borneo and Sumatra begins to flow north, but it is insufficient. Shipping is limited and convoys are vulnerable. The empire is vast and insatiable. Then comes the turning point. In May 1942, the Battle of the Coral Sea halts further advance towards Australia. In June, Midway results in destruction of 4 Japanese carriers in a single day. The surprise multiplier is gone. American shipyards begin to churn out carriers, submarines, and aircraft in numbers Japan cannot match. U.S. submarines begin strangling Japanese shipping, sinking merchant tonnage faster than Japan can replace it. Fuel shortages return, now even more dire. The war transforms into an island-hopping grind. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each island becomes a new trench line in coral and volcanic rock. Japanese soldiers dig positions into ridges, often 1 to 2 meters deep in the hard soil, because deeper is impossible before artillery strikes. American naval guns, 14-inch, 16-inch, can hurl shells 20 to 35 kilometers inland, unleashing measured barges that obliterate cave entrances. Exact rates vary by ship, according to some sources. Air raids follow. Cities burn under firebombing. The March 1945 raid on Tokyo kills around 100,000 civilians in a single night, according to some sources. The empire that began with incidents ends consumed by industrial flames. August 6th and 9th, 1945. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Atomic bombs erase cities in seconds. Japan surrenders on August 15th. The militarist path ends in devastation. Strategic consequences reverberate for decades. Japan loses its Asian empire. Korea is liberated, then divided along a Cold War fault line. China emerges victorious but exhausted, its civil war reignited. Southeast Asia's colonial order crumbles. Independence movements gain momentum. The Pacific becomes an American-dominated security zone. The doctrinal legacy is stark and undeniable. Modern militarism can hijack a state by treating incidents as policy, can transform scarcity into conquest, and can mistake tactical brilliance for strategic sustainability. Post-war Japan establishes a constitution with civilian control and renounces war as a sovereign right. The region's security architecture, alliances, bases, mutual defense treaties, arises in response to what transpired. The technological legacy is mixed with ashes. Carrier aviation proves decisive. Radar and code-breaking accelerate. Submarine commerce warfare becomes a template. Atomic weapons redefine the meaning of victory and instill new levels of fear. Memory lingers in smaller things. A folded sister's letter in a shrine. A photograph with singed edges. A whistle's pitch that still makes old men flinch. The final pivot is complete. The road that commences on a quiet Manchurian rail line culminates in ignition of the entire Pacific.